Hello, my little yarnivores. Fiber Spider back again to continue our crochet along, part 3. All right, so I'm gonna start up at the top here, and I think I'm gonna start with the gray, the charcoal that we have here, because I have so little of it used already that I want to continue on with that first thing. So, first things first, we'll grab our yarn, and this would be our center space. So we have to go over third to the right. So that's this one right in here, like so. And then we pull up our loop and chain 1 and do a single crochet into that same stitch. Locks it nice in place there. All right, and then into that center space, we're going to do our 2 clusters, because this is, technically speaking, our first corner. So that's 3 doubles, chain 2, and then 3 more doubles. Oops. There we go. So that's 1 and 2 and 3. All right. Actually, I think, that's a little bit better. Sorry. Okay. And then we're going to chain 1, and then skipping to the third in this cluster, so that's this one right here. Do a slip stitch, like so. And then chain 2, 1, 2, and then working our way over again, skipping till the third, so that's 1 because the chain space counts as 1 stitch, 2, 3, so into the middle here, we do a single crochet, and that chain counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to flip and continue finishing off our cluster. So going into this space down here, we do 2 more double crochets. There we are. So that finishes the first cluster, chain 1, and then into our chain 2 space, we do another 2 clusters separated by a chain 2 space. Actually, I think I'm going to adjust my camera ever so slightly because I think it's a little bit too low. Excuse me. Sorry. Sort of winging it a little bit. Okay, so we did our first cluster, a chain 2, and then we do our second cluster into that same space there. Here we go. Chain 1. And then into this bottom space, we do our 3 doubles for the last cluster of this row. There we are, chain 1, tighten this tail just a little bit down here. All right, and then, so I chained 1, yes, okay. Then we go into the third once again, so the chain counts as 1, so that's 1, 2, and 3, so into that middle one, we do a slip stitch, And I think I would like to continue working with the gray for just a bit. So in that case, I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. Skip into the third, so that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's the first of the double crochets on the next cluster. And we're going to finish that with a single crochet. Then we flip our work. And we're going to finish this cluster just as we did before. Going into the bottom there with 2 more double crochets. There we are. Chain 1. Do another cluster. Chain 1. 2 clusters in the corner. Oop. There we are. Chain 2. Another cluster in that same corner space. I shall persist. There we are. Okay, I will still persist. There we are. Chain 1. Cluster into the next chain 1 space. It does happen. Sometimes more often than I would like, but hey, we keep at it. All right, so then for the last cluster, it's down here in this little space there. There we go. With our 3 doubles, chain 1, skip into the third. So that's 1, 2, and 3, again into the first double crochet of that cluster with a slip stitch. There we go. And I think I'm going to do 1 more row with the gray. Again, I'm just sort of winging it here, just doing what I think works. All right, so that's going to be another chain 2. And then skip into the third, so that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's into the chain stitch. We're going to work into there with a single crochet. And there we go. So then we turn our work. Okay. And then 2 more doubles into the space down here. So that's 1 and 2. Chain 1. Go into the next chain 1 space with our cluster, as I'm doing right now. Chain 1. Another cluster into the chain 1 space. There we are. And I have a knot. Yes, one of you had recommended that I get what is called a yarn valet, I think it was. And I saw a number of examples. All right, so I got that. And then I saw that there was a really neat DIY on basically how to make your own using one of those binder clips and a bowl, essentially. There are things that are called yarn bowls, which is basically a bowl with a hole in the side or a slit in the side so that you keep the yarn in the bowl and the yarn feeds through. You know, I thought about using one of those, but sometimes simplicity works too. All right, but I'll think about it. All right, so we're going to continue along this side here. And this will be our last row with the gray, I think, at least for now. We'll swap over to a new color. Okay, chain one, and then into that space, do our last cluster. There we are. Chain one, and then skip into the third, which again is going to be our chain stitch there. So that's 1, 2, and 3 right into here. We're going to do our slip stitch. If I can get in there. I think I can. As all of you should know by now, I am tenacious at best. All right, so there we go. Slip stitch, and then we cut our yarn. Snip. Okay. And then we're going to start a new color. Be right back. All right, so for the next color, I thought let's get back to the white. Well, in this case, off-white. I believe I said it was ecru. All right, and so again, we need to go into the third. So that's the first one. So 1, 2, and 3. I mean, that's not the first one. That's the one where we left off. 1, 2, and 3. So it's the third of this cluster that we're going into, as you can see. And then we pull up our loop, chain one, and single crochet into that stitch. Nice anchor there. All right, then pull on the gray just a little bit to make it taut. And then we're going to go into this space here with our first cluster of our white. Well, white ecru. I mean, in this lighting, it looks pretty much white to me. So there we are. And we chain one, go into the next chain one space with a cluster, and so on and so forth, as we have been doing in the past two parts of this crochet along, which, hey, I did tell you from the beginning, there's a lot of repetition going on here, but it's just a matter of how you work with the growth of your triangles, really. You know, and I've been getting a lot of questions about whether or not I have a pattern for this a written pattern for this particular project, and the answer is no, I do not. And the reason why is because technically speaking, what I am doing right now is it's a static thing. You know, I could write down this entire thing from start to finish, granted, yes. However, I encourage each and every one of you to not just follow me, but to also think outside of the box and to experiment. And that's how we grow. And I say that very often because, you know, learning is how we expand our minds and grow as creative people. And my point is that, yes, you could, by all means, follow along with this crochet along. You know, hey, that's why I'm doing it, right? But the reason why I'm not doing a pattern is because you could start off with the center square being only 2 rounds, and it would work. Or 4 rounds, or 8 rounds, or 10 rounds, or however many you want. I believe it was, just as long as you have an even number so that you have the space where you need it to be. And then, of course, we're going to go into this one here. So it would almost be counterintuitive for me to actually write a pattern, because that would stifle what you guys can do. And that's the last thing I want to do, is to hamper your ability. So then we chain 1, and then we go over to the third. So that was where we left off. So that's 1, 2, and 3 right in there. So my point is that, yeah, of course you can follow along with what I'm doing, or you could start with a different number, chaining of 2, 1, 2, and 3. So into the middle of this one here, this cluster here. You could start with a different number, single crochet, and then flip. You could start with a different number of rounds for your initial square and create a even more intricate design than what we're currently doing. And I want you guys to do what feels right for you. Ultimately what works, of course, but I want you to do what feels right for you. So we did our other 2 double crochets in that space, and then we're continuing on with our clusters. Now, goodness knows that the last thing I want to do is confuse any of you. I'm here to help, to educate, to enlighten, and to entertain from time to time. Also to encourage. I want you guys to be the best little stitchers that you can be. It took me many years and lots of trial and error to get where I'm currently at. Believe you me. And I've learned a lot through watching YouTube videos myself and through reading through pattern books. Some of them are still indecipherable to me. I kid you not. Sometimes the instructions are difficult to follow, or they have the US terminology right next to the UK terminology. It's only separated by parentheses, and it makes it even more confusing, even though it's trying to be more inclusive. I have trouble too, but I tend to learn best through actually seeing something done. And that's why I like the idea of doing these videos. And everybody learns differently. Some people, they learn better through audio, some through visual, some through the actual act of doing. Me, I think I learn best through a mix of visual and actually doing it repetitively. And what is crochet if not repetitive, right? So I think that's why I've taken to it as well as I have. Chain 1. And we've got 2 more clusters of this row. Rock on. Okay, and then our last cluster is going to be in this space down here. Okay, chain 1, and then we find the third once more. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's right in the center with a slip stitch. And I think I'm going to continue on with the white as well. So that's going to be another chain 2. 1, 2. Skip to the third, so that's 1, 2, and 3. So that's the first double crochet of that next cluster. And do a single crochet into that stitch. And then we turn our work. And then finish the cluster with 2 more double crochets in this bottom space here. Here we go. Chain 1. So as I was saying, for those of you that want a written pattern, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I really am. But ultimately I think that it would actually be a disservice in this particular case. So, if you like, by all means, follow along and watch. I like having you guys here, and I love your comments. You guys are so incredibly sweet. Very, very kind, supportive, encouraging. Makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Alright, and then we're almost done with this edge here. Okay, and then we reach the apex here. Okay. And I need more yarn. There we go. Okay, chain 2, because we're at the top. And continue on with our clusters. Come on. There we go. And then continue along down this side here. There we go. Okay. And just a few more. Okay, and then got our last cluster down into this space here. There we go. Chain 1, and then we find the third. So that's where the white is, that's the one that we just did. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So it's the first of that cluster, and we do slip stitch. All right. And actually, I think I'm going to end the white right there. All right, so we snip our yarn, pull out our loop, and then we'll get on to the next color. All right. Okay, so we left off over here. So we're going to now turn our work. See, technically speaking, we could just go over to this side over here and start. However, all of these are, right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side, etc. So let's continue by doing that because it just gives it a more uniform look, I find. So we're going to flip our work. And I'm going to continue on with the purple now. And so this is where we ended. And it was into this stitch right here. That was the first of the 3. So we need to go in third from there. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So that is into the chain stitch. Which, of course, is going to be a little tricky to get into, but I shall. Oh, yes. Heh. Got it. All right, so now we pull our yarn up and through. Do a chain stitch and a single crochet into that stitch. Get our anchor going on there. All right, and then we pull our white just a little bit taut and do our 3 doubles into that space down in there. All right, chain 1. And continue up the side as we always have. And actually, because we are getting pretty close to the corner of our square, I think I'm going to continue on utilizing just the purple for the rest of this triangle. So follow along. All right. Also, I must say that I have seen quite a number of pictures of projects that you're working on, and I am delighted, absolutely delighted to see what you guys are working on. I've seen it on my Instagram account, things that you've posted on your own Instagram accounts, as well as shared to mine, which, yeah, I mean, if you want to get in contact with me, I'm Fiber Spider on Instagram, as well as on Facebook. I have a community page on Facebook. Both are under Fiber Spider, and I've seen your posts in both locations, and I'm absolutely delighted. Absolutely, because getting to see firsthand the progress that you guys are making, I melt every time. 1, 2 in this corner here. And some of your color choices, so vibrant, so different than what I would have done, and that's what I love about it, because everybody has their own personal taste. Definitely. I mean, I have a penchant, as some of you probably know, for earth tones, greens and browns and rusty oranges and so forth. The first time I did this project, it was very autumnal, earth tony, and I was absolutely in love with the colors. This time, I really wanted to try something a bit different, and I think I have. But seeing some of the color choices that you guys make, wow, love it. And I just love seeing what you guys do. So, of course, if any of you would like to share, please, by all means, inspiration is a two-way street. All right, so I'm just going to continue along down the side here. There we go. And even if it's not this particular project, I would still love to see what you're working on, of course. Or if you have any questions or suggestions or what have you, Okay, so we're going to do our last cluster into the space down here. Oh, come on. There we go. I've said it, I believe, in the last part of this series that by no means am I some sort of expert or guru or anything like that. I don't believe in puffing myself up. All right, so that was the last one. So it's 1, 2, and 3. So into that chain stitch, we need to do a slip stitch. There we go. So we're going to do a slip stitch into there. Then we chain 2. And then into the third, 1, 2, and 3, we do our single crochet. Ta-da! Okay. And I'm going to get some more yarn before we continue on, and I will be right back. Alrighty. So we're going to do our 2 more in this space down here to finish off the cluster and just work our way across. Yeah, so as I was saying, I am not some sort of guru, expert, anything like that, no. And personally, I don't like the usage of the word expert. It's a point that I'm constantly trying to make, that there's always something that a person does not know. And to me, this is just me personally, when somebody says that they're an expert, it's like, yep, I know everything. Well, I believe that a person can know a lot, regardless of what the subject of specialty is. I believe that a person can know a lot, but everything, well, there's always something to be discovered. And to me, hey, that's the fun part. It's also one of my very, very firm beliefs that the more you think you know, the less you actually do. And I have been finding that out to be a truth for myself the more and more I go on. And I'm a big advocate of humility. I have a remarkable tendency of saying that, when you're crocheting and or knitting, you need a couple of things other than just your yarn and your hooks and your needles and so forth. Yeah, you need time, you need patience, and you need humility. Being able to accept your mistakes, work with them, correct them if you can, and you keep going. Okay, so we do our 2 chains and continue doing a second cluster into that space. Here we go. Chain 1 and continue working our way down the other side. So, guru, no. Expert, no. Enthusiast, oh, most assuredly. Experienced? Yeah. I have quite a few years of this under my belt, but the thing I always love about it, though, is that I keep finding new things, new patterns, new techniques. They keep coming out with new yarns all the time, and it's fun. There's always something new and refreshing. And because I'm not just a crocheter, but also a knitter, there's twice as much variety and twice as much to learn and do, and all these different techniques and everything. To me, hey, variety is the spice of life, and I'm pretty spicy. All right, so we're almost done with this row. Goody, goody, goody. Almost done with this one. And at the rate that we're going, I think it's going to be maybe another 2 more rows, I think. Not entirely sure, but I'll figure it out when I get there. Okay. Yeah, because we have to reach that sort of point of no return. All right, so I'm going to go into this space down here. For the last cluster of this row. There we are. Pull that a little taut, chain 1. And then going into the third, we went into the chain space the last time, so 1, 2, and 3. With a slip stitch. And then go into the third again, so the chain stitch counts as 1, 2, and 3, so it's the middle. All right. And, oh, wait a minute. Back up. Excuse me. We have to chain 2. There we go. All right, so chaining 2, 1, 2, and 3. There we are. And so going to do a single crochet. And then we turn our work. Okay. And then, since we did our first double here, we do 2 more in this space down here. Chain 1. And continue along this side. And of course, as you know, well, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, I am such a lover of books. You know, I've been doing all those audiobook readings, which I do love so very much. And also, it's not just that, but also I'm a lover of pretty much all crafts in general. Some I gravitate towards more than others, but for quite some time I did quite a bit of jewelry making, and I was very much considering doing a series of tutorials on working with polymer clay, which is an oven bake clay. And because I used to make a lot of pendants and beads and earrings and bracelets and necklaces and all sorts of goodies using polymer clay and chainmail jewelry and wire wrapped things, and I've done quite a bit of jewelry in my time, and so I was thinking about perhaps doing a series, yet a new and yet another playlist, working with polymer clay, making jewelry, thinking about it, perhaps with the warmer season approaching. There we are. So one more cluster into that corner space there. Yeah, see, the thing about polymer clay is that, as I've said, it's an oven bake clay. And one of the things, of course, that they recommend is that when working with it, you open your windows. Working in a ventilated space, very important. And that, of course, you really can only do during the warmer season. All right, so continuing along down this side here. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to work with. It's also not terribly expensive, and you can get as in-depth with the tools or use a lot of homemade makeshift tools, which I can appreciate as well. But it's a lot of fun, And again, like with crocheting as well as knitting, it's always nice to be able to make something tangible that you can use and wear. And then, of course, somebody says, "Oh, where did you get that?" And you can be like, "Well, actually, I didn't get it. I made it." It's a very gratifying feeling, let me tell you. I mean, granted, I don't go wearing dangly earrings, but, I have made quite a few necklaces and bracelets that I've worn, and it's a very gratifying feeling, let me tell you. There we are. And almost done with this row here. Almost. And I think we're just going to have one more to go. Yay. The bigger this piece gets, the more difficult it is to keep it in frame and in focus. I do apologize. All right, so I chained one, and then into the space down here, we do our last cluster of this row. There we go. And then going into the third, so that's 1, 2, and 3, so that's the middle. We're going to do I didn't get that all the way, sorry. There we go. Do a slip stitch into there, and then we chain up 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we turn our work. All right. And see, like in the last time, we had our chaining up of 3, and it meets up with our chaining up of 3 over on this side, and this is going to bring it all together. Okay? So I will be right back. I just need to pull out some more yarn, and then we'll get onto the last row. Alrighty, so finishing off this cluster, going down into the space here with 2 more double crochets. There we are. See, this one, it's going to reach across. The one on this side over here is going to have the chain 1, which we're going to slip stitch into the third chain there. So this will work. All right. So going to work our way across, as always. Chain 1, and do our clusters. Another playlist series that I would love to do is perhaps embroidery, counted cross stitch, sewing. I do love to sew, and I haven't done it in quite some time. For me, it was never sewing clothes or anything like that. Not really. No, actually, it was more making stuffed animals. I am a overgrown child, and I do love making stuffed animals. Usually not with any sort of specific pattern, just let my imagination run wild. It's more fun that way. So that too, that's another thing that I would plan on doing. I've got more ideas than I have time in which to execute them, I'm afraid. But I figure, I've only been doing this channel for less than a year, but I've got time. And I like spending my time with you guys. To me, it's oh so worthwhile. Alright, we're almost done with this edge. And then we're going to go down the other edge, and then this corner will be done. Haha. Always a good feeling. This yarn keeps knotting up on me. I do apologize. Oh dear. I'm just going to get this undone. Be right back. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. Yes, the yarn has a tendency of having a mind of its own. It's a little impish today. Alright, so I'm in the corner, chained up 2. I'm going to do our second cluster in the corner here. There we go. Oh. See what happened? I'm going to redo that one. Sometimes when you stitch and the plies get caught, stretches them out a bit, makes it look a little unseemly, so there, that's better. And just going to continue working our way across. If I ever get there. Oh, dear me. Yes, I can be a little spastic at times, I do admit. I deny nothing. It's quite all right. There we are. Okay. There we go. Just a few more, and then this triangle will be done. Oh, always feels good. Always. you're actually making some progress. Sometimes it can seem like you're pouring sand into a sieve, trying to transport it, like a small child on the beach, but you get there. You do. It's not quite sand in a sieve, it's more like a drop in a bucket, and then another drop in the bucket, and then another, and before you know it, you've got a full bucket. Just got to keep at it. You'll get there. It's like I was saying before, time, patience, and humility. Well, keep those things in mind. You can do almost anything. All right. Just about there. All right, so into the space down in here to our 3 double crochets. Ta-da! And that's it. Because now we're going to chain 1 and we are going to snip our yarn. Ha-ha. I'm just going to pull that out for safekeeping so it doesn't get undone. All right. So now we have our next triangle finished. Isn't that lovely? Now, as you can see, the 2 tails up here, they're sticking out on the incorrect side. However, it's not a big problem. All you have to do is just, push them to the back and then sew them in on the other side. It's not a problem whatsoever. The reason why that happened was because we used an odd number of rows. When I did the 3 rows here with the white, that's why. So it's not a big deal. It's just the variation that does happen. So it's just a matter of pushing the yarn tail through the back and pushing the yarn tail through the back like so. And then, just as I had done before, just sew in your yarn ends, in your pre-existing stitches, and you'll be good to go. So that is the end of this triangle, and then I'm going to do the next 3 and the border, and then part 3 will be done as well. Alrighty. Work, 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 work.